Why might parents mistrust current vaccine recommendations? I'm Sam Eggertson. I've been a family doctor for 35 years. I work in a community health center in Washington State. This video is the result of my efforts to understand and to address parental concerns about vaccines. Why do parents refuse to vaccinate their children? This presentation is not intended to make recommendations for or against childhood vaccinations. It is not a comprehensive literature review, but a selection of articles and issues that may contribute to parental concern about vaccines. If you have any questions about vaccinations, you should consult your own healthcare provider. I'm fully vaccinated and my children received all recommended vaccines. The parents of some of the children I care for reject the current vaccine schedules. In a 2014 survey, 1/3 of parents felt that vaccines can cause autism, and in another survey, 9 of 10 parents with children less than 18 wanted vaccine safety as a top research agenda item. Why do parents mistrust vaccines? Why such dissonance? In an attempt to understand this, I've asked parents about their concerns, and I researched the basis for their concerns and the basis for our recommendations. I remember one mother quite well. Her son was due for the MMR, but she declined it. She was afraid it might cause autism and wanted to delay the vaccine until he was older. I began to explain to her that the evidence shows the MMR does not cause autism. I acknowledged that one British researcher had caused concern about the MMR, but had proven to be a fraud. His article had been retracted, and his license to practice medicine had been revoked. Her response surprised me. "You are wrong. Not only are you wrong, but Dr. Wakefield is a hero." This patient believed Dr. Wakefield to be a hero, while a university professor at a recent course I had attended had said that prison alone wouldn't be sufficient punishment for Dr. Wakefield for the harm he had done. The two views are polar opposites, hero or criminal. I realized I should not have been parroting the condemnation of Andrew Wakefield without having looked at the details myself. Later, as I researched this mother's concerns, I included seeking information about Andrew Wakefield. I'm going to discuss several topics before returning to the case of Dr. Wakefield. First, the issue of newborn hepatitis B vaccine. The following questions came up in my attempts to address parental concerns. Is there a compelling need? Are there risks from the aluminum? Does it increase the risk of autism? Does it interfere with normal development? Is it effective? A baby of a hepatitis B negative mother in a low-risk family has a negligible risk for acquiring hepatitis B during infancy. With prenatal care, women are screened for hepatitis B, and if they are carriers, babies receive a regimen including immune globulin and vaccination. Hepatitis B does contain aluminum, and aluminum is toxic to the nervous system. It no longer has the amount of mercury it once had, but it does have 250 micrograms of aluminum. The FDA recommends that a baby receive no more than 10 to 25 micrograms at any one time. Although the recommendation is for IV aluminum, we are giving babies a large intramuscular dose of a metal known to be a neurotoxin. Very concerning is a study showing boys vaccinated as newborns had 3 times more autism. How could any parent reading about this study not be worried? This is another worrisome study. A single dose of hepatitis B vaccine given to newborn rhesus monkeys delayed the acquisition of the very basic reflexes of rooting and sucking. Boys who had received the newborn vaccine enrolled in special education 9 times more often than those not receiving the vaccine. Is it effective? In this study, by age 2, almost half the children vaccinated because mom was a hepatitis B carrier were infected, although most were occult infections. And in this study, more than half of adolescents vaccinated as infants were infected or did not have demonstrable protective antibodies. So we may be vaccinating infants, but by the time they reach an age when they are at risk, immunity may have waned. What do you say to a patient who tells you there are no safety studies, no need for the vaccine this early in life, and that there are very serious risks? Gardasil. A growing number of parents are refusing the HPV vaccine for their children. I looked for answers to these questions. Is there a compelling need? Why was it developed? Does it prevent cervical cancer? Does it reduce HPV prevalence? And is it safe? In the developed world, the rate of cervical cancer is low, and pap smear screening and subsequent treatment is effective in preventing cancer deaths. So is there a compelling need for this vaccine? A scientist with experience in the South Pacific, where cervical cancer was common and no treatment available, developed the vaccine. He felt the only hope for preventing cervical cancer in the developing world was to have a universal vaccination program. And the cervical cancer rate in the South Pacific is much higher than in the United States. Even though it was designed for the developing world, it was introduced in the United States for girls in 2006 and for boys in 2011. In fact, there is no direct evidence that HPV vaccine prevents cervical cancer. It is a hoped-for outcome, not a proven one, and serious adverse reactions may be much higher than the rate of cervical cancer. Does the vaccine even reduce the prevalence of HPV? This article claimed that despite low vaccine uptake, the estimated effectiveness was high. Again, estimated, not proven. And if one looks at the details of the study, the vaccinated girls actually did worse. A review of licensure trials found them to be seriously flawed and inadequate. Merck is very much involved in promoting this vaccine. It is very expensive, costing between $300 and $400 for each series. Is it safe? In fact, Gardasil is responsible for more reported serious adverse events, more permanent disability, and more deaths than all other current vaccines combined. These data are from VAERS, which is our Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. And an update on this website shows deaths now to be more than 200. And these are likely low estimates, as only 1 or 5 to 10% of adverse events tend to be reported. Here is a case report of a girl for whom at autopsy HPV DNA fragments and aluminum were found in her tissues. How do we justify our recommendations for the HPV vaccine? Influenza. Should we give flu vaccine to 6-month-old children? The 2012 Cochrane Review found that flu vaccines in children less than 2 are no better than placebo. Flu vaccines may compromise immunity to other viruses, including other influenza strains. In this small study, those receiving the flu shot had increased rates of infection from other viruses. So what do we say to parents refusing to vaccinate their 6-month-old against influenza? Aluminum and mercury are major concerns. We give a lot of aluminum, and remember the recommendation for no more than 10 to 25 micrograms at any one time IV. And the Gardasil has now been reformulated and now contains 500 micrograms of aluminum, up from 250 micrograms. Countries with higher exposure to aluminum have higher prevalence of autism. And remember the study we've already commented on, in which newborn vaccination was associated with increased autism in boys. Premature infants who have aluminum in IVs do worse neurologically than infants on special aluminum-free IV feedings. Aluminum is generally accepted as safe, but this may be a major error. Is it safe? Mercury has been used for decades. In 1997, Congress mandated the FDA to reassess the use of mercury in the form of thimerosal in vaccines. And in 1999, the FDA reported there was no evidence of harm from thimerosal. In 2003, participants in the Dan Burton hearings in Congress did not accept this FDA stance and did not accept the efforts to remove thimerosal from vaccines were sufficient. We still have thimerosal in multi-dose flu shots. So was the FDA stance that thimerosal is safe justified? The studies used to support the idea that it is safe have serious flaws. The CDC stance that thimerosal is safe is based in part on 6 published studies that are reviewed by Brian Hooker in this article. Other reviews are found on the safeminds.org document, also referenced on this slide. These are the 6 studies we'll discuss. Before we go to the first study, it is important to know about the VSD, the Vaccine Safety Data Link project. It was established by the CDC in 1990 and now consists of 9 HMOs and contains data on 7 million people, including 500,000 children. The CDC has strictly limited access to this database, and this is a serious problem. On their website is the statement, "When possible, the CDC tries to accommodate these requests, but the reality has been very different, as we will get to." Here are the participating sites, including Group Health Cooperative in Washington State. The Verstraeten study used this database. It is a very interesting and very troubling study. Many aspects of the study were secret and would not have been known if not for the Freedom of Information Act. There were at least 5 phases with revisions. Each revision lowered the association between thimerosal and autism. In the final published version, no data were reported to support a conclusion relating thimerosal to autism. The first phase did show an increase in autism with thimerosal exposure at 1 month. In the second phase, the increase was smaller. In the third phase, smaller still. By the 4th and 5th phases, no increase was noted. They had started with 4 HMOs on the West Coast, but in the end used only 2 of the original 4 HMOs and added a third that had questionable record keeping. This is from a presentation at a CDC conference in the year 2000 for thimerosal vaccines given in the first month of life, a very significant increased risk of autism. Also discovered through the Freedom of Information Act was the Simpsonwood meeting, where worry was expressed about damage to the vaccine program that might result from what was being found. Robert Kennedy Jr. described the transcript of the meeting as chilling. You can find this online easily and read it for yourself. During these phases, emails from the researchers contained the following: "I do not wish to be an advocate of the anti-vaccine lobby, but at least not let our standards be dictated by our desire to disprove an unpleasant theory. It just won't go away. I haven't yet found an alternative explanation. These findings are very extreme and warrant closer examination. So the bottom line is, our signal will simply not just go away."